Hello people. So I should just say quickly before I begin, I'm not that well, just so you know. I don't know how this will affect the video essentially, but I thought that I should say it. So it doesn't sound like I'm not putting any effort in or something like that. But anyway, I've been thinking of the human design of the upcoming UK election. And that's what this video is going to be upon. So straight up, I'll put up the human design astrology for this coming election. We will come back to this. Now, previously in my life, about 10ish years ago or a bit less, I became very, very obsessed with politics, and I'm not obsessed about politics anymore. I have started focusing in this direction because it's something to talk about in relation to transits and stuff, and it's always on Twitter or wherever you are, so it's relevant. But I don't feel like I'm evangelizing like I used to in this area. When I talk about it, it is nonetheless based on the perceptions of someone that has been very interested in this and has had very specific opinions on it in the past, because I did some of the astrology I'm going to talk about in this video back when I was very interested in it. So I'll note something that I think about how politics works and how the sides between the right and the left work. And when we talk about the right, I'm going to talk about more so the sort of Trump right or the UKIP right, and not the conservative right. So in American lingo, that would be the Trump right and not the Republican right, the mainstream Republican. So it's a side that's very, very focused on small business, very anti-establishment, you could even say conspiracy, very focused on cutting red tape, not in favour of global warming legislation and such and such. These are the conspiracy theories that were generally anti the lockdown and the medical treatments that happened in the 2020s. And I think when looking at politics, this is probably one of the strongest forces to watch. It's those people that are setting the tone, and then the other side of politics, the side that's opposing this sort of UKIP right, tends to be the people focused on the centralisation of government power, pro big business, pro establishment, and everything staying as it is. And the UKIP right is very Uranian. So Uranus is a planet that's very, very pro-meritocracy, is very, very pro-inventiveness, innovation, anything like that, independence, all the things that the sort of Trumpian right wants to promote. Like they want a strong middle class with lots of people starting their own individual businesses, and that's how they feel that the world will move forward in relation to gaining extra wealth and stuff. And so the way I think politics works is that you have that Uranian force, and then you have a force that works against that. And I don't think that the left and whoever else is working against that force are coming up with their own ideas, really. I think they are just anti-Uranus. And so as I talk about this, this should show through in my perspective. So I think that when Uranus went into Aries, and so it began a whole new massive long cycle, that this is where we started to get the forces of the revolutionary right, so to speak, showing themselves, like starting to move forward, starting to attempt to change things. As you can see in my diagram here, I'm going to use a human design chart overlay, but in this section I'm going to focus on the zodiac sign of this picture, but later on I'm going to actually focus on hexagrams again. So as you can see on my diagram here, Uranus enters Aries on March 11th, 2011. Soon after that, we have Trump speculates running against Barack Obama in 2012. Didn't work, but I think he withdrew, or I can't remember what happened, but that was when he started to put his foot forward for that kind of role. He did show some interest in politics previously and attempted to run for senator, but that's not quite the same thing. Once Uranus had moved into Aries, we saw Trump moving forward. Then we saw UKIP winning European elections in 2013. That was one of the first things that really put them on the map. Before then, they were languishing away in 2.6% vote shares in various elections, but the 2013 European elections was when they really started to hit the mainstream. Then, in 2016, all hell broke loose with Trump and Brexit both happening in the same year. What happened after that was that Trump and Brexit being voted for did change some things. It changed the conversation, it changed the political landscape, but the massive resistance coming from the forces against movement, so to speak, the forces for the centralisation of government power and for everything kind of staying as it is, they really put in their thumb on the switch, so to speak. They really stopped anything moving forward, and it is now 2024, and we have only begun to see a potential movement forward, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Now, this was back when I really cared about Brexit, thought about it a lot, and I remember this time. If you go to the Wikipedia entry, what happened in March 2019 doesn't seem like a big deal, but it was a big deal to people paying attention at the time who were pro-Brexit. So the Conservative government had this Brexit thing that had been voted for, but they didn't want to do it. It was very clear they didn't want to do it. And for me, it was so annoying, every day, we haven't done anything on Brexit, we haven't done anything on Brexit. And it was just this stuck thing. But they triggered Article 50, which is the process by which a country leaves the European Union. And this was in 2017 sometime. And then the final deadline came when Theresa May had to actually act on that Article 50. And this is a bureaucracy, so you know how they respond. When they don't want to do something, they just delay as much as they possibly can. It's a very effective and very damaging weapon. But what happened is in March 2019, exactly, this was about 10 days off from when Uranus entered Taurus, and it was the same month as the Article 50 was actually finally meant to happen. I can't remember precisely what happened, but I think Theresa May was got rid of in 3 months because she just wouldn't do it. I think that's what the situation was. Now, the thing that has brought this to my attention or made me think maybe it's worth doing a video on, maybe it's worth looking at the human design of, are these tweets here, and I'm going to display them. Basically, it seems, although it's hard for me to believe when I was so often disappointed in the past, it seems like reform might create a real impact in this election. It might be that a lot of the establishment types, a lot of people that don't emotionally want to look at the idea that reform are going to gain votes, will be surprised on the day, and that Nigel Farage's party may get a lot of seats and things. Just about an hour and a half ago, on Nigel Farage's chart here, we see that Jupiter has moved into gate 16, so I think that could give Nigel a real boost because it relates to his conscious Earth, which is a very significant point in the human design chart. Anything in the top 4, the conscious and unconscious sun and earth is called the incarnation cross. But there's another small thing that I wanted to hypothesize. Where is Uranus now? Well, Uranus for the past year or so has been in gate 23. And what could that mean? Well, it could mean that just in our personal lives, not even in any grand political sense, there's been an effect of a lot of those sort of weirdos on the outside of society that support UKIP and the revolutionary right, as I call it, have been perhaps kept out of, the social life, perhaps ostracized a bit. And with Uranus moving over the gate 23, because the gate 23 is about accepting that kind of diversity, I am wondering whether people have in their own personal lives, some people with the gate 23 or who just have felt its effects for some reason, have been more open to connection with those sorts of individuals. Because what might happen is if you go to this here, the UK election day chart as such, we can see that Mars is in 2.6, which means on the day after, on July 5th, when everybody's getting the results, or soon after, Mars will be in gate 23. So what could that mean? Well, Mars very often creates extreme stress, extreme tension. I mean, it's there when extreme tension comes up. Often it's there when extreme tension isn't there. But when stressful things like that happen, there is often Mars. I've seen it a lot in relation to passive aggression and conflict and group dynamics. So it seems to me the expression of this, especially with it approaching Uranus a few days after, is that when Mars enters the gate 23, a lot of people that haven't done that thing of trying to accept the unusual people will suddenly feel very stressed, because the Mars is going to suddenly be saying, I'm here, you can't do anything about it, there's a conflict now. And all the people that have avoided this situation up until now, like a lot of very mainstream voters are very good at ignoring anything they don't want to look at, will suddenly feel quite a lot of shock. So Uranus came along first, and so it prepared those people that are open to, warmth, cooperation, change and stuff like that. And then the people that for whatever reason didn't take that up, Mars comes along and says, hey, we're here, tough luck, you didn't take the opportunity, and now there's a bit of a conflict. Not much more to say here. You can see that Chiron is in the gate 42 and Venus is in the gate 53. So the wounds of the world are starting a new cycle in relation to feminine energy. I would say that's probably to do with people having hope and wanting skills and wanting a new life, a new connection to the social life. It's interesting also that the moon is at gate 16 at the end of the day on July 4th, because that's obviously where Nigel Farage's connecting transit has been. But anyway, that's all I have to say, so thank you for listening.